So it comes out, and of course, Eric Davis is in the center of the storm here, and he's issuing one no comment after another, apparently. However, we have a statement, and I did not get this statement. This comes from my colleague and friend, James Ian Dolan. I want to talk about this in a minute. But first, it has to do with this.
We need to give the setup.
I want to give you the setup for this. This is a snapshot of Lou Elizondo appearing on Tucker Carlson. This is only two and a half weeks ago. This is May 31st, 2019, where this is just for the premiere of the TV series Unidentified. Mm-hmm. Elizondo gets a spot on Fox. Carlson interviews him. Tucker Carlson, by the way, by far is the best mainstream person on UFOs these days. Like, he's clearly into it, and he asks fantastic questions of Elizondo in this interview. Very impressive that you have a mainstream guy asking the questions that Carlson does. In any case, I copied some of this as a transcript, so I just want to read this to you. This is where really they get into it. So this is toward the end of the interview. It's only 5 minutes. They all are. Carlson says, so do you believe, based on your decade of serving in the U.S. government on this question, that the U.S. government has in its possession any material from one of these aircraft? He says aircraft, but they're talking about UFOs. And Elizondo has this pause, and he says, I do, yes. So he's saying that the U.S. government has it in its possession, material from a UFO. Carlson pauses, and he restates it. He says, you think the U.S. government has debris from a UFO in its possession right now? And Elizondo says, unfortunately, Tucker, I really have to be careful of my NDA. That's my non-disclosure agreement. I really can't go into a lot more detail than that. Carlson says, okay. Elizondo then says, but simply put, yes. So he's saying, and that was really the end of the interview. So as a result of that, talking just yesterday with James Ian Dolan, who, by the way, is an amazingly motivated, smart, plugged in like in the sense that his research is outstanding in UFOs. He's only in his 30s, and he's absolutely on top of this. I'm so impressed by his motivation. So Ian Dolan was able to contact Eric Davis at that time. This is less than 3 weeks ago. All right. And so as a result of that, he gets this very carefully managed quote from Davis, and I'm going to show it to you now. James put this slide together. Whoops. Here we go. This is it. And this is Eric Davis on the night of May 31st, June 1st. It's like a little after midnight, according to James. He says, Luis Elizondo's very brief answer to Tucker Carlson's question about whether the U.S. government is in possession of recovered, crashed, and landed UFO technology hardware is 1,000% accurate. My national security NDAs prevent me from adding any further comment on this. And by the way, James's YouTube site is called Engaging the Phenomenon. I would certainly recommend you check that out. So that's Davis's quote to James. And what James pointed out, he says Davis was very careful. He said he actually re-edited it and reworked it to add in landed UFO. Like, it was originally, right, I think, crashed UFO, mm-hmm, but he added in recovered and crashed and landed, mm-hmm, UFO technology. Mm-hmm. That's very interesting.
Right.
Because if you go to page 13 of the Davis-Wilson notes here.
I feel like we're all in a briefing right now. Okay, turn to page 13.
Turn to page 13. Yes, that's right. So at the top of that page, all right, here's Wilson telling Davis they had a program manager talking, a craft, an intact craft they believed could fly. And then Davis in questions mark, space, air, water, dimensions. And then, it's clearly they're saying it's not terrestrial. But the fact is, an intact craft they believed could fly. So I would like to just pause on that for a minute. It's very obvious, okay? Davis, in his answer on June 1st, is thinking explicitly about those notes he wrote all those years before. That in this deep black program, they had an intact craft. So that's not a crash necessarily. It's and it's also interesting that he said they believed could fly. So it gives you the impression they had it and they didn't know how to fly it, right? That they hadn't taken it out for a spin, as it were.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that was Davis's quote to James Ian Doley, which was authorized. That's according to James. Davis said, "Yep, you can use it." So